We begin our journey in the fractures. This Kintsugi bowl, which I referred to last year at ARC. Kintsugi, kin means gold, tsugi means to mend, carries more than gold in the fractures. It holds time, patience in a master's hand, beholding what is broken. When something shatters in Japan, at least traditionally, it is not discarded, but it is considered sacred because it has been broken, because it has been shattered. In the West, we are quick to throw away, to replace, and move on. But the Kintsugi master does not rush to repair. The first gesture is not even fixing, but seeing. It is an act of reverence, and to mend is to behold. So if we want to talk about mending a culture that is broken, to create a civilization that's worth living for, we need first to learn to behold the fractures. When Japan lacquer is poured, called urushi, into the broken seams, when gold is dusted onto those fractures, into the cracks, the vessel is not just returned to the former state. It becomes something more luminous, more valuable, more whole, not in spite of, but because of the wounds. The fissure lines become a horizon, a curvature of a sacred river, a mountain ridge of gold. Joseph Campbell famously said that if you want to change the world, change the metaphor. So if we can learn to see the world in this way, as a Kintsugi master will see it, to see our brokenness not as an end, but as a beginning, then our fractures become a portal of generativity. But we need to be patient to behold. I turn to another tradition that embodies this slow seeing. Illuminated manuscripts from medieval European times. Here you see the Ormsby Psalter, the sacred calligraphy of medieval scriptura. And in my own work, displayed in a gallery here, thanks to Baroness Philippa for insisting to bring these major works of mine here at ARC, the Four Holy Gospels project, which began as a way to commemorate the 400th anniversary of King James Bible. These illuminations, like Kintsugi, emerge from a process of layering, of breaking and binding, of waiting and revealing. You see, in illuminated manuscripts, East and West overlaps. The past splendors we share in illuminations, literally using the same materials. Pulverized minerals, minerals from the earth. My frontispiece is here, this large painting called Kairos, the Tears of Christ. Charis means grace, time, Kairos means time. This is called Consider the Lilies. It's a frontispiece for Matthew. This is Mark, called Water Flames. This is called Prodigal God, for frontispiece of Luke. And finally, John, in the beginning, These colors are layered over and over. These minerals, azurite, malachite, crushed oyster shells, gold leaf, are pulverized, refined through fire, bound with Nikawa, traditional animal hide glue, to create paint. This process is slow, somehow called what I do slow art, and deliberate. With each layer, the colors gain depth. So it takes a while. When you stand in front of my paintings, you will not see it for about 10 minutes. Each layer, the colors gain depth into prismatic luminosity. A healthy democracy is prismatic too. Luminous impossibilities. You see, because liberal democracy is a work of art. A poet reminded us last year, what we behold, we will become. And I believe it is time that we move from the left brain to the right brain, to think like an artist, a poet of care, a storyteller to weave our future narratives. Because I still have a dream. You do too. And I stand with those who faced oppression and marginalization and dare to become dream makers, dream keepers, and dream weavers. They were courageous artists of love, standing under and against injustice. And these dreams are not static, but they are polychromatic and polyphonic, a movement of splendor with shouts of liberation. So we need to listen, learn to listen. And we artists also know how easy it is to manipulate and distort the truth through images in this era of culture wars. We also know how idols are created and erected. But we also know how to make things so that worship of images can be replaced by worship of God, who gives us truth, who gives us beauty, who gives us justice. Artists of culture care can teach us to sanctify our eyes and our imaginations. But what we have done in recent time of culture wars is we have conscripted these artists into the front lines. This is the final page of the Four Holy Gospels. In the last pages of the Book of John is a wounded tree of life. Generativity of an artist of care requires a different posture, a posture of patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness. A willing to tend to, like a good gardener, to create, to plant, and wait. I have been obsessively watching many garden shows of late. Thank you. They're all created here in UK. I have been learning how you must plant tulip bulbs before the winter, so that under the winter coldness, the darkness of snowy winter, they can set root. The beauty we will see in a month or so is not possible without the dormancy of cold. These harsh winter winds that we are feeling right now. The deserts of the United States hold seeds that are dormant for 7 years before the rare rain awakens them, making them bloom. Even in a field of war-torn earth, as in Flanders after World War I, poppies came up and arose, even though, as a poet said, April is the cruelest month. We can learn to behold and pray for rain. Look closely at this painting, Chiaroscuro's The Tears of Christ, and you will see the prismatic chroma raining down on the surface of the work. They capture slow art of painting, layer by layer, gestures of azurite and vermilion, gold poured over darkness, each stroke slowly settling over years. It's been over 11 years or 13 years since I painted this painting, and it's settled beautifully. This is how beauty is formed over time. And this, I might add, is also how democracy is formed, not in the immediacy of reaction to fix, but in the slow tending, mending, and creating out of interwoven histories. Democracy, like an illuminated manuscript, is crafted not for the moment, but for the ages to come. Culture care movement can be about this very shift, moving from cultural criticism, which is necessary, but it needs to lead to cultural cultivation at the core. We need to see the soil of culture not as a battleground, but as an ecosystem to tend to, a garden to grow. If you want to change the world, change the metaphor. Kintsugi repairs a single vessel, but this extension of Kintsugi, called yobitsugi, calls into, yobi means to call into, to mend, to connect, which is sugi, a rarer form that's something even more radical. It joins together fragments from entirely different vessels to create a new whole. Pieces that never belong to one another are brought together in gold, forming a mosaic of histories, even to bring fragments of an enemy territory, like Korea, then to Japan, into a yobi-tsugi reconciliation. And this, I believe, is the metaphor for our time, how we built a civilization, even though we experience brokenness. The modern impulse is to forget and discard what is lost or misshapen. But yobitsugi teaches us another way, to look for the missing pieces of history, tradition, and culture, and find them to complete a mosaic of interdependence. If a civilization is to endure, we must move beyond mere toleration into a deeper recognition, because no fracture is isolated and no healing is solitary. We often in America, where I am from, speak of independence as the highest ideal. We even began to think that singularity is inevitable, beholding machines that create their own world. The Declaration of Independence from humanity. We need a better story, a better paradigm moving forward, harnessed by what even the most advanced AI cannot do, to see and touch the prismatic world full of glory embedded in our earth. Instead of independence, what if the truer aspiration is a better story of interdependence? What if healing never comes if we are imprisoned in our own isolationist, monotone bunkers? how do we then see this prismatic interdependence? A color wheel, all artists know this, is full of opposing hues. Red and green, blue and orange, yellow and purple. They actually vibrate against each other. If misused, they will clash. But a master painter's gaze, Matisse, Monet, Van Gogh, they can make these colors sing. A jazz musician does not play in a stage of isolation. A note in a symphony, as we heard this morning, is not complete alone. Beauty emerges actually out of counterpoint, tensions, and the tensile strength of differences held together. The universe is a complex stage, a rhapsody of jazz. So, I have a dream. You might say that such ideals will never be realized, that you're being too idealistic of an artist. I've been told that many times as an artist, that we are creatures of private day dreaming. But what we behold, we will become. Art reminds all of us to say that I have a dream too. We now become what we make too. We need to understand both the promise and the danger of our making. And let me say a word to you in the room who are artists and creative catalysts. You have been the canaries of the coal mine of culture. We detect the toxic air of culture wars, and we sing. Now, canaries sing in the gas-filled chambers, and they die. There's a cost to our singing. I want you to know, artists, that now is the time. Now is the time to spread your truth wings, rather than being trapped in a cage of divisiveness. You have always been the one to give voice to the oppressed and marginalized, give freedom to the souls of imprisoned. Harsh winds are blowing now, and our roots may be found to be wanting. But those who have anchored their roots in the ancient streams of truth, goodness, and beauty can and will be left standing. May we be a forest of those trees guarding our cities. May we carry the impossible dream of peacemaking to behold the fishers. That is why I stand here with you today. This is our work, all of us, to become artisans of connection, to strengthen our wings, to bind the wounds of history with something stronger than even alluring and temporal cultural power. Charis Kairos. Grace time is now. We are a refractive splendor with the enduring golden seams flowing through our fissures. So let us declare not our separateness, but our singularity, but our connected sinews of interdependence in our stage of complexity. Let us not wallow in the cynical spirit of our age, of despair, but let us wait for the pungent aroma, a crown of spring flowers to come, casting patient hope into the war-torn horizons. We stand not as a solitary broken vessel, but as a mosaic of mended beauty, luminous in our fractures, made whole in our vulnerability of love. And this is my declaration of interdependence. Thank you.